24 million square kilometers. 1 out of every 4 humans alive on Earth. Ruled by a single family. That was the Mongol Empire in the summer of 1259. The largest contiguous land empire in human history. It was not destroyed by an enemy. It was destroyed by itself in less than 30 years. The grandchildren of Genghis Khan turned their cavalry on each other. They used the same tactics that had crushed China and Persia, the same horse archery that had broken every army from the Pacific to the Danube. Now they used it on cousins, on uncles, on brothers. Mongol killed Mongol on a scale the world had only ever seen them inflict on outsiders. Hundreds of thousands of warriors burned through in civil wars no Western school teaches. By 1294, the empire was gone. Not conquered, just split into 4 pieces that hated each other more than they hated any foreigner. The men who could have ruled the world chose to rule pieces of it instead. Eventually, they ruled nothing at all. The greatest war machine in human history defeated itself in 1 generation. Every superpower built since then has been trying not to become the Mongol Empire. The British, the Spanish, the Soviets, the Americans. They were not killed by foreign armies. They were killed by the men inside their own palace. The same disease that killed Karakoram. So how does the family that conquered the largest land empire on Earth lose it without a single foreign army crossing the border? How does the most successful military in history bleed itself white in 3 decades? And what was the exact decision, the single moment, when the empire was already dead and nobody knew it yet? This is dust of history. By the end of this, you will never see the rise and fall of empires the same way again. The year is 1251. A man named Möngke is elected Great Khan of the Mongol Empire. He is the grandson of Genghis Khan. He inherits the most powerful military force the world has ever seen. 300,000 mounted archers. Each man can ride 60 miles a day. Each man can fire 10 arrows per minute at full gallop. They eat what they kill. They sleep on horseback. European knights take 3 hours to put on armor. A Mongol trooper is in the saddle in 90 seconds, with 4 spare horses tied behind him. Möngke decides to finish what his grandfather started. He sends his brother Hulegu west into Persia. He sends his brother Kublai south into China. He himself takes the field against the Song dynasty. 3 campaigns, 3 brothers, 3 theaters of war running at the same time. In 1258, Hulegu reaches Baghdad, the capital of the Islamic world, the seat of the Abbasid Caliphate for 500 years. The siege lasts 12 days. The slaughter that follows lasts 7. Some accounts say 200,000 civilians dead. The Tigris River runs black for weeks, black with the ink of every book in every library thrown into it. The greatest collection of human knowledge outside China, destroyed in a single week. The last caliph is rolled in a carpet, then trampled to death by horses. Mongol law forbids spilling royal blood on the ground, so they crushed him through the carpet instead. This is the Mongol Empire at its peak. Far to the north, Meng's cousin Böke rules the Golden Horde, the western Mongol territory in Russia, and the steppe. He has done something his grandfather never did. He has converted to Islam. He hears the news of Baghdad in late 1258, the destruction of the holiest city in his new faith, by his own cousin. He says nothing in public. But something inside the empire has just cracked. The decision had already been made. Nobody knew it yet. Meanwhile, in southern China, Möngke is besieging the fortress of Dou. The Song dynasty refuses to fall. The campaign is brutal and slow and very hot. In August of 1259, Möngke dies. Some sources say cholera. Some say dysentery, some say an arrow in the siege lines. The great Khan is dead, and the empire has no clear plan for what comes next. Mongol succession works through a council called the Kurultai. All princes of the bloodline are supposed to ride to Mongolia. They gather, they debate, they elect a new Khan. It worked when the empire was small. It cannot work now. The empire is too large. The princes are too far apart. The campaigns are too important to abandon. Hulegu is in Syria. Kublai is in China. Böke is in Russia. The fourth grandson, Ariq is in the homeland, the traditional capital of Karakoram. Ariq holds the Kurultai immediately. He is elected Great Khan by the princes who can reach Mongolia in time. By tradition, this election is final. Kublai refuses to accept it. You are Kublai Khan. You are commanding the Mongol armies in China. You are 45 years old. You have spent the last decade cynicizing the Mongol court. You read Confucian philosophy. You wear Chinese silk. You have surrounded yourself with Chinese advisors. Your brother in Karakoram represents the old ways, the steppe, the gur, the rejection of foreign culture. You believe Mongolia cannot rule the world from Mongolia. You believe the empire must move south to what will become Beijing. Your brother believes the opposite, and you both have armies. In 1260, Kublai holds his own Kurultai in China, with his own princes. He declares himself Great Khan. The empire now has two Great Khans. For the first time in Mongol history, the civil war that follows is called the Toluid Civil War. It lasts 4 years. It tears the heart out of the empire while the empire is still expanding outward. Hulegu in Syria has just heard about Möngke's death. He is in the middle of campaigning against the Mamluks. He has Damascus. Aleppo has fallen. Egypt is 2 months of marching away. He pulls back instead. He has to attend the Kurultai. He takes most of his army with him toward the Caucasus. He leaves a smaller force behind under his general Böke, about 20,000 men, to hold what they have already conquered. This is the moment that ends Mongol expansion forever. The Mamluks of Egypt see what has happened. The main Mongol army is gone. They have a window. They have weeks. They march out of Cairo. 20,000 mounted slave soldiers, trained from childhood for this exact kind of warfare. In September of 1260, they meet Böke's force at Ain Jalut, the spring of Goliath, in what is now northern Israel. For the first time in 50 years, a Mongol army loses a major battle. Böke is killed. His army is destroyed. The Mongol advance into Africa stops forever. The myth of Mongol invincibility dies on that field. Every enemy of the empire from Hungary to Vietnam takes notice. The Mongols can be beaten. You just have to wait until they are fighting each other. And they are about to fight each other harder than anyone imagined. Böke of the Golden Horde now openly breaks with Hulegu. The destruction of Baghdad is the public reason. The real reasons are older: pasture rights in the Caucasus, trade routes through Persia, Mongol pride, Mongol greed. In 1262, Böke launches the first Mongol-on-Mongol war in the empire's history, cousin against cousin, tens of thousands of Mongol cavalry on each side. The fighting takes place along the Ariq River. It is brutal beyond description. These are men who fight the same way, with the same horses, the same composite bows, the same total disregard for casualties. When two Mongol armies meet, neither has the advantage of surprise that won them their empire. The Ariq campaign in 1263 ends in slaughter on both sides. Mongol corpses fill the river. The river ice breaks under the weight of bodies and horses. Whole tumens, units of 10,000, are wiped out in a single afternoon. The empire is now bleeding from the inside. And it cannot stop. Watch this from above. In 1264, Kublai finally defeats Ariq after 4 years of war. He spares his brother's life. Ariq Böke dies under suspicious circumstances within 2 years. Kublai is now Great Khan of the entire Mongol Empire. On paper. In reality, he controls only Mongolia and China. The other Khans accept his title. They do not accept his orders. The empire has been divided into 4 pieces, each ruled by a different branch of the family. The Yuan dynasty in China and Mongolia. Kublai's territory. The richest part of the empire. The Ilkhanate in Persia and the Middle East. Hulagu's territory. The most cultured part of the empire. The Golden Horde in Russia and the steppe. Böke's territory. The most independent part of the empire. The Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia. The most violent and unstable part of the empire. Within 30 years of the founder's death, the empire has split into 4. None of them recognize a single Khan above them. Now watch the Chagatai Khanate. In the heartland of the original empire, a 5th player emerges, a man named Kaidu, the grandson of Gede. He had been passed over in the succession. He has waited his whole life for the chance to take it back. For 30 years he wages war on Kublai from Central Asia. He raids the borders of China constantly. He drains Yuan resources. He forces Kublai to keep huge armies in the west. This is the Second Great Mongol Civil War. It runs from 1268 to 1301. It is the longest war in Mongol history. It is also the war nobody outside Asia is taught about. You are Kublai Khan. You are sitting in Khan Balik. You are Emperor of China and theoretical Great Khan of the Mongol Empire. You cannot speak to your cousin in Persia without messengers traveling 6 months. You cannot trust your cousin in Russia at all. You cannot leave the borders of China without your own cousin in Central Asia raiding your provinces. You are the most powerful man in the world, and you cannot rule what your grandfather conquered. You make a fatal decision. You turn outward. You will conquer Japan. You will conquer Vietnam. You will conquer Java. You will prove you are still the Great Khan. 2 invasions of Japan in 1274 and 1281, both destroyed by typhoons. The Japanese call them kamikaze, the divine wind. Tens of thousands of Mongol troops drowned in the sea between Korea and Kyushu. 3 invasions of Vietnam between 1257 and 1288, all defeated by guerrilla warfare in jungle the Mongol cavalry cannot use. Tens of thousands more dead. 1 invasion of Java in 1293. A complete disaster. The Mongol force is tricked, ambushed, and forced to retreat to its ships. Each defeat costs men, prestige, and treasure the empire cannot afford to lose. The myth of invincibility dies again, and again, and again. By 1294, Kublai dies in his palace. Old. Obese. Half-blind. He has lost almost every foreign war he started. He has watched his empire shrink. He has watched his army defeated by farmers in rice paddies and fishermen in ships. The dust is settling on the largest empire in human history. And it is settling fast. After Kublai's death, the 4 Khanates begin to truly disintegrate. The Ilkhanate in Persia converts to Islam in 1295. It now shares the religion of the people it conquered. Within 40 years, it disintegrates into civil war over who is the true heir. By 1335, the Ilkhanate has ceased to exist. Persia returns to local rule. 2 generations of Mongol conquest erased in a single decade. The Chagatai Khanate splits in 2 by 1340, then splits again. The Mongols who once ruled from the Caspian to the Pacific now fight over goat pasture. The Golden Horde survives the longest. But in 1359, it enters its own succession crisis. 20 different Khans in 20 years. The Russian princes the Mongols once terrified begin to refuse tribute. By 1380, a Russian prince named Dmitry Donskoy defeats a Golden Horde army at Kulikovo. The Mongols are no longer untouchable. In China, the Yuan dynasty has been bleeding from internal corruption for 50 years. In 1368, a Buddhist monk turned bandit named Zhu Yuanzong drives the Mongols out of Beijing. The Yuan emperor flees north on horseback, back to the steppe his ancestors came from. The Mongol rule of China is over. 150 years after Genghis Khan rode out of Mongolia, his descendants are back where they started, with nothing but horses and grudges. The morning after the Yuan flee Beijing in 1368, you walk through the imperial palace. The Mongol guards are gone. The Mongol officials are gone. The Chinese servants have stripped the silk from the walls. The treasury is empty. The horses have been taken or eaten. In the throne room, the Buddhist monk who would become the Hongwu emperor stands looking at the Mongol throne. He has spent his life in poverty. His parents starved to death under Mongol taxation. He sits on the throne. He does not order it destroyed. He understands something the Mongols never did. You can replace the rulers without replacing the system. The Mongols had taken China. They had not taken the idea of being Chinese. The idea outlasted them. In Persia, the same thing happens. The Mongol elite of the Ilkhanate convert to Islam. They marry into local families. They learn Persian. They patronize Persian art. Within 3 generations, they are no longer Mongols. They are Persians who happen to have Mongol grandfathers. The conqueror has been absorbed by the conquered. The same thing happens in the Golden Horde. The Mongol nobles convert to Islam. They marry Turkic women. They speak Turkic languages. By 1500, the steppe has no real Mongols left. Only the descendants of Mongols who have become something else. This is how the largest empire in history ends. Not with one final battle. Not with one final defeat. It dissolves. Like sugar in water, it disappears into the cultures it once ruled. The conquerors become the conquered without anyone noticing. The lessons written into history are immediate and brutal. Every European power studying the Mongols realizes the same thing. Speed and ruthlessness can take territory. But they cannot hold it. Holding territory requires institutions. Bureaucracy, law, religion, marriage, trade. Things the Mongols never built. The Russian princes who lived under Mongol rule for 2 centuries learn this. When Moscow rises, it borrows everything from the Mongols except their fatal weakness. Centralized administration. Permanent capital. Hereditary succession with clear rules. The mistakes of Karakorum are not repeated by the Romanovs. The Ottomans learn it too. They build a slave army that owes loyalty to the Sultan alone. No tribal Kurultai. No succession war. Every empire after the Mongols is partly designed to avoid what happened to the Mongols. Every superpower built since 1300 has been trying not to become the Mongol Empire. The British Empire deliberately built indirect rule. Local elites kept their thrones. Local laws stayed in place. The center in London focused on trade and military. It still collapsed. But it lasted longer than the Mongols by understanding what killed them. The Soviet Union expanded across exactly the same territory the Mongols once ruled. Russia, Ukraine, Central Asia, the Caucasus, the Far East. It collapsed in 70 years. From the inside, from a succession crisis at the top, from rivalries between regional bosses who started caring more about their republics than about the Union. The pattern is identical to 1259. The American empire of bases and alliances now spans more territory than the Mongols ever ruled. 800 bases. 170 countries. The same thinkers who study Cannae and Naseby study Karakorum. They look at how Möngke's death broke the Mongol communications system. How the empire became too large for its leaders to know what was happening at the edges. They look at the modern parallels, and they do not sleep well. The lesson is older than empires. It is about human nature. Power that is not divided becomes power that is fought over. Brothers who built something together always argue about who owns it. The men around the throne always become more dangerous than the men outside it. Möngke was killed by dysentery, but the empire was killed by his cousins, by his brothers, by the people who should have been its strongest defenders. You think this is medieval history? It is not. A succession crisis at the top, a rivalry between regional players, an overcommitment to wars on the periphery while the center rots, a communication breakdown between the parts of the system that used to trust each other. This is not just the death of the Mongol Empire. This is the death of every empire that grows too big to listen to itself. The Mongols invented modern military mobility. They invented intercontinental communication networks. They invented religious tolerance as state policy. They invented international trade protection. They invented the relay courier system that became the modern post office. And they could not invent a way to stay together for more than 3 generations. The smartest empire ever built. Defeated by its own cousins, defeated by the same human flaws every powerful family in history has shared. The grave of Genghis Khan has never been found. By his own order, the men who buried him were killed. The horses who carried his body were killed. The river was diverted over his tomb and then returned to its original course. He did not want anyone to find him. He did not want anyone to disturb his rest. He also did not want his children to fight. He warned them on his deathbed. He told them the empire would die if they could not stay together. They did not listen. None of them listened. They all believed they were the exception. Every empire that ever fell believed it was the exception. The Romans, the Ottomans, the British, the Soviets. The men who lead empires today believe the same thing right now. While they make the same mistakes Genghis Khan begged his children not to make 800 years ago. History does not repeat itself. The men in charge of history just keep being the same kind of men. Here is what I want you to argue in the comments below. At what exact moment did the Mongol Empire become unsavable? Was it the day Möngke died with no successor named? Was it the day Hulegu sacked Baghdad and turned his Muslim cousin against him? Or was it 40 years earlier when Genghis Khan divided his empire among 4 sons and pretended that would work? There is no easy answer. Every choice you defend rewrites the map of the world. If this is the kind of history you came here for, subscribe. The version they don't put in the textbooks. The next video goes inside the day a single emperor's bad decision cost him an army of 500,000 men. You won't believe how avoidable it was. They conquered the world and could not share it with each other.